how I would argue with you anymore. Open the doors.
This conversation can serve no purpose anymore. Goodbye.
Welcome to the Cinema Slime Podcast, where sometimes I go solo. Thanks for joining me. This is Renn, and today I'm going to be talking and sharing a film that I discovered, one that I couldn't not talk about because the slime has seeped into my mind. And every now and then, the stars align, and I find time to watch a film, a story, an expression straight from the director's mind, and my own mind becomes the backdrop for these flickering images that began as a dream or a flash of inspiration that eventually was converted into film. They leave lasting imprints on our subconscious, and I find it fascinating to think about how cinema can literally alter the lens through which we view our own world and change our realities in most instances. I experienced one of those films recently, and I'd love to talk about it, and it is Gus Van Sant's 1991 painfully intimate My Own Private Idaho. I always love how people arrive at certain films, so I'll share my path, but a favorite pastime of mine is scouring the internet for movie recommendations. Letterboxd is a common reference point for me, though I have a million movies on my watch list that I'll probably never see because I forget to check it. But one of the best parts of producing our Cinema Slime podcast is our monthly format. We randomly select a movie category, then pick 4 movies within it, and a while back we landed on Catherine Bigelow's 1991 banger, Point Break. Thank you. It instantly became one of my favorite movies that we've ever covered on the show, and I was completely blown away by Patrick Swayze. I was perplexed by Gary Busey, and saw a whole new side of Keanu Reeves in that film. Because growing up, like most people, my first exposure to him, I think I was around 12 years old, but it was when I first saw The Matrix. So Point Break was a total shock. Johnny Utah showed us a side of his talent that I had never seen before, and I wasn't even sure if I was impressed more than I was stunned. But regardless, it kicked off an unofficial deep dive into his filmography. My mom used to watch Much Ado About Nothing all the time, and I'd walk past the VHS cover of Johnny Mnemonic at Blockbuster or Hollywood Video 1,000 times. And I never realized that he was the star of Speed, though I remember seeing that on TV a lot. And just the concept of being stuck on a bus that can't slow down without exploding was blockbuster dynamite, and a movie that I'm dying to revisit very soon. I also recently watched him in Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula. There's a lot going on in that one, and I don't have the time nor the mental capacity to go into that right now. But as an adult, I find it very rewarding to be more conscious of cinema as an art form, analyzing the imagery on screen rather than just passively watching, waiting to be entertained, and really just reformatting my expectations when I watch a film. I came across a thread online about great forgotten acting performances, and someone mentioned River Phoenix, a famously respected and gone too soon actor whose work I knew from playing young Indiana Jones in The Last Crusade. Honestly, I mostly remember his stunt work in that. I think it's like a 15 or 20 minute opener, maybe not that long. But on that opening train, and he's like dodging every animal you could possibly imagine that you see at the zoo. And when he whips his own chin open, I just love the origin story for Harrison Ford's actual scar in that movie. It's awesome. Recently rewatched Mosquito Coast, which was all right to revisit. I was mostly there for Harrison Ford, but again, Rivers delivering exactly what the role required. Stand By Me, the role most people know him from, is a very special movie. His performance is great, and to be honest, the entire cast is absolutely incredible in that movie. But for a film to isolate his talent and give us a lot of time with just River Phoenix, that's really where we get a feel for the sheer amount of talent that he possessed. And I'm truly beginning this deep dive, it seems like. I haven't even seen Sneakers, and there's a few other movies I can't think of right now that are supposed to be excellent, and I'm excited to watch those. But that's how I stumbled onto My Own Private Idaho. Unavailable on streaming services at the moment. I checked the local library. Of course, there it was, a gorgeous Criterion Collection Blu-ray. Put it on hold, picked it up as soon as I was ready. And just so happened, the kids were out at their cousin's house. My wife was closing up the shop where she helps run a ski chalet. Shout out Ski Chalet in Gresham. And we had just gotten back from a very long camping weekend, so I was fully ready to take absolute advantage of this relaxing, quiet downtime. Going into films completely blind is my absolute favorite way to watch a movie. Not knowing what to expect. Knowing the cast, of course, but remaining totally in the dark about the story really allows you to just hold on for the ride. It makes the discovery feel personal. And I stand by this theory. I think trailers are better suited for a movie that you've already seen, and it can get you excited to see it again. We've all seen a trailer beforehand where all the best lines are spoiled, or where you piece together the end because you realize that a character wasn't actually dead yet. It's just not ideal. But right from the jump, the movie begins with a dictionary definition of narcolepsy, followed by our protagonist, Mike Waters, played by River Phoenix. He stands on the side of a narrow, empty highway wearing an old bowling shirt with the name Bob stitched on it and a crooked black beanie on his head. He's a man stuck in the middle of life with no destination in mind. He peers through his fingers at the road ahead, where two distant trees sit on either side, creating the surreal image of a distorted, smiling face right in the landscape, almost saying, "Have a nice day." Suddenly, he looks ill, his eyes roll back, and he collapses onto his backpack in the middle of the asphalt, seizing. An unintended safe landing, luckily. This is narcolepsy. Peppered throughout this opening is absolutely gorgeous, breathtaking Oregon cinematography. It's cinema in its purest form. It's just gorgeous framing, open landscapes, glowing sunsets, and Gus Van Sant gives you all of that, plus a rich tour of Portland in 1991. Side note, when you blind watch a movie and recognize real-world locations on screen, it adds an entirely whole new layer of excitement. At least it did for me. But as an Oregon resident, seeing home portrayed in film is kind of strange. This movie is packed with hometown shots, and it felt so nostalgic in a way that when I actually think of Portland, I think of Portland in this timeline. And things have very recently vastly improved within downtown Portland and its vibe and everything, and we're back. I'm so excited. I've been spending the past couple days there, and I just get emotional looking at the small progress that we have made. But more to come on that. But yeah, absolutely love spending any time that I get to along Burnside, anywhere on the waterfront. In fact, we just went biking there yesterday, me and my wife, on our 12-year anniversary. It was great. There are a bunch of great rooftop shots, motorcycles humming down 2nd Avenue. You get glimpses of Jake's famous crawfish and the original location of Mary's Club, a legendary strip club that used to share a hallway bathroom with an incredible, long gone, sorely missed Mexican restaurant named El Grillo. I still drool when I think about their chili relleno burritos to this day. And the first place I ever had a chili relleno lengua burrito. Don't judge it. It's effing incredible. It's delicious. But it didn't take me long to learn that when you asked to use the restroom at El Grillo, they would like point to this sketchy back door that led straight into Mary's. And my buddy Sevi failed to mention this to me, but in hindsight, I think I was just oblivious. But all of a sudden, I'm waiting in line for the bathroom, and then I found myself standing in this underbelly of horny, dodgy dudes with these naked dancers, and it was dark, dank, and perverted, and absolutely unforgettable. And I remember seeing a dancer with one boob. That's a core memory that I will hold on to. They also filmed some really key scenes around St. Mary's Cemetery. I believe it looked like it. I don't know where else it would have been, but you can track the exact street signs and pinpoint where all the cameras were placed online. I found a website. But it was an absolute trip to travel back to 1991 Portland. Coincidentally, the exact same year that my family moved here. As the story unfolds, we see Mike passed out in a chair, shirt off. The camera pans down as cash is tossed onto his chest by a client lurking in the background. Mike wakes up, pulls his pants on, and sits outside the closed door begging for a few more dollars. The camera pulls us behind the door to reveal a large, scraggly, bearded dude, someone he seems to know fairly well, with a strange dynamic between the two. But Mike's life is coming into view. A young man in his early to mid-20s, a hustling sex worker with narcolepsy searching for something. The vagabond looking for home. And at this point, which is early in the film, I'm all in. Very intriguing stuff, but watching Mike survive through street sex work builds a deep, uncomfortable empathy for the desperation required to live that way. Van Sant, a Portland local himself, takes us straight into the city's underbelly, and we are in Mike's world, hanging out with his circle of street hustlers, sleeping on the sidewalk, overstaying his welcome inside diners, and meeting others in his line of work. There's an absolutely heartbreaking scene inside a diner where I suspected right away that the people on screen weren't traditional actors, and the Criterion special features on the Blu-ray disc confirmed it. These were real interviews with young male sex workers sharing unscripted accounts of their worst experiences on the job. There's one graphic account that is a genuine nightmare to have lived. It's horrific. You can just see it in their eyes, and you can hear it in their voices. And this reality was very real for them. And then in my mind, I'm thinking, please, God, do not let this be foreshadowing what is to come. So as we follow Mike, he arranges a job with a new client, a well-off woman past her prime, maybe in her mid-50s, and he enters her home. He notices they aren't alone, and he meets two other street hustlers sitting on the couch. Here we meet Scott, played by Keanu Reeves. Scott explains that they're just there in case the client needs to be warmed up before Mike goes in. Inside the bedroom, Mike sort of dawdles around. He looks around at the woman's photos and small decorations on the shelf, picking up a massive conch shell to hold it up to his ear so he can listen to the ocean, transporting himself momentarily. The client enters, ready to go, and then narcolepsy strikes. Mike seizes up, collapses, creating a very awkward situation. And she calls in Scott and this other dude, and they carry him outside. Not sure what to do with him, Scott waits until Mike eventually comes to. Scott finds it in himself to take care of him, and they retreat deeper into a world of abandoned buildings where we meet the ringleader of their street family, Bob Pigeon. Rumors are swirling that Bob has returned from wherever he's been. He's a large, round-bellied character who delivers every line with a theatrical, Shakespeare-infused flair, leading to a cult-like hierarchy baked into this small community. These street kids don't act like typical homeless junkies. They operate under a distinct code. And we also learned Scott is actually the son of Portland's mayor, destined to inherit a vast fortune once he turns 21 years old. Scott uses his street world as a temporary rebellion, creates a chaotic ecosystem where Mike feels seen, even as Bob Pigeon angles to exploit Scott's resources one day. Kind of complicated, but by this point I realized that I had stumbled into a central piece of new queer cinema. Had I known the subgenre beforehand, I probably might not have sought this out, simply just because it isn't my usual focus, but I am so glad that I did. The film offers a brutally honest depiction of this hidden world, and it captures the bizarre absurdity of that lifestyle without feeling too sleazy. It isn't horny, it's raw and human, and there is a massive difference. Very sexual, but it feels like a true independent film. It just overflows with this artistic freedom that Gus Van Sant had. Or at least that's how it felt, but zero studio interference from my point of view. I don't know, maybe a little. But it feels completely uncompromised. In one unforgettable sequence, the covers of these vintage adult magazines on a newsstand literally come to life and give us this exposition for Keanu's character and this world of being this street hustler, sex worker, and it gives us insight into how he views himself. In another, River and Keanu perform their own stunts. There's a scene where they kind of putter into this abandoned building on a motorcycle, and they like hop off in time and then just jump straight into their dialogue. It's super impressive. But it's funny, I caught really strong whiffs of Midnight Cowboy in the way that it has this really tender portrayal of these city wanderers. I also felt touches of Clockwork Orange with the street gangs, and I'm almost certain that that was an intentional nod. There's a scene, it's a really stylized showdown beneath St. John's Bridge, which coincidentally is the exact same spot where my wife and I took our engagement photos, but it just screams Clockwork Orange. Lots of shadows on the wall, beating, yeah. But we get more Portland scenery, including a scene where Mike wakes up at the foot of the Elk Fountain on Southwest Main Street between 3rd and 4th Avenue. But I noticed something. The actual elk sculpture has no rider on its back, and apparently Gus Van Sant painted one of his production assistants green and had him sit on the top of this elk statue. Also, the engraving at the base was changed to The Coming of the White Man as a reference to a Washington Park monument known in the 70s and early 80s as a marketplace for those seeking late-night mail company. Just a great detail that he added. Really, really good. The script is also a loose adaptation of Shakespeare's Henry IV, and I believe the Fifth as well. Don't know. Didn't confirm that, and I'm recording this now, so it is what it is. But that really explains the long, heightened dialogue. Whenever they're in these dingy, abandoned buildings, Keanu really leans into this stylized delivery, giving us an early glimpse of the work that he would do in Much Ado About Nothing about 2 years later. But this may have been his unofficial audition tape for that role. I don't know. He brings in his familiar, wooden, yet oddly captivating charm that balances River's raw intensity. They are two completely different types of actors, but they balance each other beautifully. As their narrative progresses, they cross paths with a bizarre character played by the legendary Udo Kier, who desperately tries to hire them. Meanwhile, we learn about Mike's internal drive, and he has recurring visions of his mother holding him as a child in Idaho. And he yearns to find her. But remember, this is just before the internet, an era of physical legwork. It's a completely different world than what we're used to today. There's no Facebook, so you can look up where your mom is, see where she was tagged, see if she has an online presence, anything like that. Send an email. So this movie shifts into a road trip movie. I thought of Paris, Texas, but I love that movie. But, it kind of ties into finding your parents or your parents finding a lost... Yeah, it's just, I don't know. Shout out Paris, Texas. Love that movie. But it shows us this, and we travel from Portland to Seattle and out to the open highways of Idaho. And they track down a hotel where Mike's mother used to work, only to learn that she left for Rome, Italy. They're broke, they're stranded, they bump into Udo Kier's character again in the lobby. He whispers his room number, and they agree to a job. What follows is one of the most uncomfortable, strange, kinky, yet brilliant scenes in recent memory, and Kier's character breaks into this bizarre song and dance routine, grabbing this heavy desk lamp still plugged into the wall and lighting up his face. He used to be an actor, like a performer. So he's reliving these spotlight days and then juggling it while reciting this song flawlessly and with absolute total confidence. Van Sant then does something really interesting, but he cuts to this encounter using this static, still living photography sex scene, frozen frames of the actors posed in nude still compositions. It's visually striking, it's shocking, deeply artistic, and there's a whole lot of ass cheeks and twisting nipples galore. It's insane. But then comes the scene that made me want to record this episode. On the road, after their motorcycle breaks down, Mike and Scott sit beside a campfire in the desert. The topic of conversation turns to love, and Mike, a painfully shy, narcoleptic soul searching for something to heal his internal pain, confesses his deep feelings for Scott. Scott listens, but gently explains his pragmatic rule. You can't fall in love with someone who pays you for sex. The transaction ruins it. Mike argues in a polite and unassuming way, but ultimately just sort of quietly disagrees. This campfire scene is easily River Phoenix's best performance. What he does between shots, his body language, his face, his total vulnerability, the eye boogers in the corner of his eyes, the messy hair, the lack of sleep, the bags under his eyes. I mean, it's masterclass acting. It's also very ballsy. It's a raw role that feels like it absolutely took a toll on his well-being. He was actually recommended to not take the role because of the content in this movie, and he did it anyways, and I respect that. But he must have been completely obsessive about it, because you feel it in every single ounce of the pain that he shows us on screen. By the way, it absolutely blows my mind that River and Joaquin Phoenix are brothers. Like, how does one family produce two of the most mesmerizing, brilliant actors? Their approaches seem to be completely unique from one another, but they're both absolute genius. But anyways, so with their earned money, Mike and Scott fly to Italy. Against the backdrop of Roman architecture, they track down the farmhouse where Mike's mother was last seen, only to find that she's moved on quite a long time ago. While the search for his mother ends in a dead end, Scott, who travels with him, actually falls for this young Italian woman living at the farmhouse. Following another beautifully shot still photography sex sequence between the two, Scott decides to leave the street life behind, taking his new love back to Portland and to claim his inheritance and step into high society. I don't want any spoilers in this movie. I'm not going to spoil the end of the movie, the rest of anything, including the dramatic subplots involving Mike's family, because there is a lot to discover on your own. There's some shocking shit in this. Again, just painfully uncomfortable. It's an excellent movie. Another thing that this really made me think about is that there are just realities about Portland's homeless population that have persisted for decades. And it's a complex part about our city, and it's easy to become numb to it. Even as our city makes recent strides, the devastation along the sidewalks as you walk past local landmarks is real. Those conversations with your kids are also inevitable. I will never forget the first time I had to address it with my oldest son. I think he was about 5 years old at the time, but we were driving right around the corner of Burnside and 2nd Avenue, steps from where Keanu and River filmed their motorcycle ride through the city. A man's on the sidewalk, just screaming into the middle of what I assume was a mental health crisis of some sort. But he was hitting, pounding the walls, and he started licking the glass window like storefronts. And I'm driving, looking in my back seat, looking at this guy, and in the glass reflection is my son's face. I'm just like seeing this all through his eyes. And, we just don't know people's stories. How hard their lives have been, the traumas that they're carrying. It's a really tough conversation, but approaching people with basic empathy is essential, and we've talked about that. And we kind of bring it up every time we go downtown, to be honest. We went to Voodoo Donuts the other night, right, Nick? I think it's the Portland Rescue Mission. There's always lines of homeless people or people in need that need help. And we're walking by them all, and there's a lot of people sleeping, passed out, peeing on the side of the road. And, my kids kind of laugh about it. And, I smile to kind of lighten the situation, but, it's hell on earth. So hopefully things get better. So back to the movie. When I see River Phoenix play a character who ends up heartbroken, cold, and alone on the very Portland sidewalks that I've skateboarded down since I was a teenager, it just brought that lesson right back to the surface. This movie sobers you up. It forces you to look inside. And when cinema gives us a story like Mike's, it broke my heart open. And those subtle shifts in perspective are the real power of the medium. And Gus Van Sant delivered a piece of art that was exactly what he wanted it to be. It's challenging, it's beautiful, and deeply human. And that is the true magic of going into a movie, especially blind. But watching My Own Private Idaho, it felt like stepping into a time capsule, reframed through a lens of profound empathy. Rest in peace to River Phoenix. We're pretty damn lucky to have had you while you were here, and we captured your brilliance on film for the brief time that you were here with us. And watching Keanu Reeves in this raw, pre-Speed era is endlessly fascinating. I'm having a lot of enjoyment from finding these movies. and watching them for the first time. It's been great. And if you've never taken a chance on a movie completely blind, let this be your sign. Pick a random movie that you've heard good things about but have never seen. But just step outside of your comfort zone. Let the story take you where it wants to go. And thanks for hanging out with me on this solo run. Peace!
That's a wrap on this episode of Cinema Slime. Be sure to watch the next film for next week's show. We had a blast, and we hope you enjoyed it. This episode was a production by Cinema Slime Productions. This is a group effort, and I speak for all of us when I say thank you. Seriously, it means a lot to us, and thanks for listening however you found us. Help us grow, leave us a 5-star review, and it really helps if you comment and share it with another cinema lover. Our website, cinemaslime.com, is up and running. We're adding essays, all of the episodes can be accessed there, and for our Patreon members, you get every episode ad-free and early. Our social media pages are always active, posting fun stuff, movie-related videos, and other film rabbit holes that we're exploring. You can also show us support by using Buy Me a Coffee, and we'll give you a shout-out if you'd like. All of those links can be found in the episode notes. Love you!